Many elected officials, local elected officials come in and present to us. We've had the district clerk, we've had the county clerk, I think we've had Mr. Barber has been here before. Did I see Gary Barber? Hey Gary, hi Commissioner Ward, and I think I see Commissioner Phillips here. So we appreciate what our local officials do. They are always welcome here. All we're asking for is that elected officials listen to each other and find a prudent way to determine what the priorities are. And a reasonable expectation is that they deliver the highest quality services at the very best price. Those core functions are supposed to do. And that's a reasonable expectation. So, thank you all for being here. I'm going to have to leave as close to about 20 till 2. I have to be out here for that conference call. But thank you for being here. And Sheriff Smith, thank you for being here. And it's your show now.
Thanks very much for the opportunity to be here today to talk to you about the Sheriff's Office. What this allows, I want this to be informative for you. What this allows me to do is to continue what my pledge was to you when I was running for office, is to be transparent and to bring to you the needs of the Sheriff's Office, as I've done in 9 previous town hall meetings over the last year and a half. And I will tell you, I told you I'm going to do town hall meetings. I'm going to continue the town hall meetings if I have 5, 10, 15, however many people show up. But what it also allows me to do is to show you the needs, and what I'm going to do in this PowerPoint presentation, you're going to see a lot of needs in there. And what has driven this presentation is the turnover rate is what pretty much got it started of the Sheriff's Office, especially the jail and communications, which are 2 very important functions of the Sheriff's Office. The jail, I will tell you, as the sitting sheriff, it is the quickest place that me as the sheriff and Smith County can be the subject of a lawsuit. And I think it's very important to have the proper number of personnel there, to keep that from happening. But what it also allows me to do is I just talked about transparency. If you'll remember, I know many of you were here throughout the election cycle over a year and a half ago, and I think it went on for 2 years. But anyway, I made some comments during that, and hopefully I fulfilled most of my promises that I told you that I would do when I took office. I don't make statements lightly when I say I'm going to do something. I intend to do it, or I would never say it. And the biggest part of that is when I tell you that I have simply been hired to manage your sheriff's office. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you, the people. And when I come out and speak to you and speak to other groups, it allows me to get the feedback that I need, because communication is not a one-way street. It's both ways. Unless I can hear what your needs are, I can't properly function as your sheriff of Smith County. So that is what is so good about these meetings like this. And again, I want to reiterate, this is a presentation of what the needs are, what some of the problems we see about not being able to retain employees and things of that nature. They're simply ideas that we've come up with to try to turn that around. And I don't want you to look at me like I got 3 eyes up here and think I'm naive enough to think that we can fund every one of these in 1 year. We didn't get to this situation in 1 year, but my thoughts are we need to find out the root of the problem, or what I like to refer to as opportunities instead of problems, and get it headed in the right direction. Because I truly believe the best is yet to come for Smith County. I don't think we've already seen the best of Smith County. I think it's yet to come. But I'll go ahead and get started on your, and if you will, I'd like to save the questions for after I'm through the presentation, if that's okay. I just want to go over first, and Joanne told me I had 2 hours, right? I guess not. That was a question, that wasn't a statement. I won't go over a few of the things that we've been able to do at the Sheriff's Office. Increase the number of patrol officers on the streets, and I promise you, I'm not going to read this whole presentation to you. To improve the response times and on-view offense arrest. Discontinue the use of patrol, which we're delivering trustees out to different workplaces and delivering the interdepartmental mail. That's not what they need to be doing. Their function needs to be out in the community. That's where I put them back to. Acquired gas cards through the help of the Commissioner's Court, where when we went to the 12-hour shift, we don't have to come all the way in from Lindale and Winona, all the way into the downtown Tyler to refuel our vehicles. We can do it there at the location. I believe we get a 5 cent a gallon discount off of that. And depending on when you buy your bulk fuel, sometimes it's a better price, sometimes it's a little bit more expensive. But anyway, that allows us to keep the deputy on the street where they need to be. We purchased tasers for all the patrol officers to reduce injuries and potential lawsuits. We were getting, the first time that I saw that we were one of the only law enforcement agencies within the county that didn't have tasers. So when I got woken up at about 5 a.m. one Sunday morning and had 3 deputies in the hospital, I said, okay, we got to do something. So through private donations, we were able to buy the tasers for them. So that has helped tremendously. We created an Office of Professional Responsibility, which, as you heard Joanne say a minute ago, I don't think it's any secret anymore that unfortunately, I'm not up here to boast about this. There's nothing to boast about. But we have arrested 4 employees that work for the Sheriff's Office. One is in Leavenworth Penitentiary right now for delivering crack cocaine and methamphetamine in a patrol car. I'm not proud of that, but I tell you, I'm going to do what I promised y'all to do. We're going to clean it up, and I think we have somewhat, and we've turned the ship around, and I believe it's headed in the right direction. But we created that Office of Professional Responsibility, which is nothing more than a fancy term for internal affairs, and he has been very busy. He also serves as kind of interdepartmental human resources person that has to do all this hiring and coordinates all of the interviews, the background investigations for the potential employees we have. We created an office, public information officer position. And what we did on that, we combined 2 administrative positions with the help of the Commissioner's Court in the middle of the budget year, right after I took office, and we were able to come up with that position. But I'm going to go back and tell you right quick before I forget, all of these things I've said we've done so far hasn't cost you another penny, or we haven't hired another person. Matter of fact, I think we've been able to do away with 2, maybe 3 positions. I think it's 2. And what that also does, when we combine the 2 to get a public information officer position, it also, what you need to realize, it also does away with that 41%, I think it is, benefit package that person gets. So we really save more money than it really looks like we have. But what is so important to me about a public information officer, it goes back, again, it's your sheriff's office, it's your law enforcement agency. You need to know what's going on within the sheriff's office. And the vehicle by which we do that is a public information officer through the media to you. And that, as well as the town hall meetings we're having. We created 2 multi-purpose K-9 positions for patrol, tracking, and narcotics enforcement. I can tell you we could use 1 or 2 more, but I don't think we're going to be getting 1 or 2 more, but they stay busy is what I'm trying to say. We received a 24-foot Skeeter boat, center console boat from Skeeter over in Kilgore at no cost to the taxpayer. What we do with that boat, we don't use it hardly any other time. If the need arises, we will be able to. We usually use it on major holidays when Lake Palestine and Lake Tyler get so crowded that you need more law enforcement on it. We do that in conjunction, and so far what we've been doing with the personnel we put in the boat, it's on a volunteer basis. And then we will take another couple volunteers usually from patrol. I believe we got 1 from jail transport that does it. And we will add a second person to the game warden boat in Lake Palestine or Lake Tyler, just to make sure everybody has a safe holidays and gets back to where they need to be. When I started visiting the jail after the election was over with, I wanted to get a head start on some things. One of the things that kind of bugged me, that ate at me quite a bit, is I'd be up there on the floor where the inmates are, and the detention officer would have to holler back at the picket, which is the little room where the one operating the door sits, and have to holler 2 or 3 times and get them to open a door or whatever. I said, this has improved. So what we were able to do is purchase 2-way radios, and what I was able to do, I checked with the attorney, the DA's office, to make sure it was a legitimate purchase, I'm sorry. But we have funds referred to as inmate commissary funds. Those are funds where we sell commissary to the inmates, and we get a percentage of that from the commissary company that are discretionary funds for me to use as long as it benefits the safety and security, or it benefits the inmate in some way. I mean, we'll buy basketballs, we'll buy sometimes mattress covers, pillows, things of that nature to help along with the budget. But we were able to purchase those, and what I want to tell you is at no cost to the taxpayer for that purchase. We've enhanced courthouse security through the purchase of ballistic vests, firearms, radios, tasers, and training. We didn't need a wake-up call at our courthouse here to tell we needed more security. And there were some security measures put in place, but as far as the personnel there went, the building and everything was made a little bit more secure. But we felt that we needed to go to that next step, and Commissioner's Court and Judge Baker allowed us to use funds out of the courthouse security fund to make these purchases. So we've retrofitted the administrative office. One of the things when I came into office that I saw, we had no communication, direct communication from the command staff to the Emergency Operations Center out on Spur 248 towards Chapel Hill. And if we had something very major going on in the county of a big emergency, we would have to rely on just being on the telephone with communications to try to communicate with them. Through a generous purchase by Brookshire Grocery Company, we were able to purchase a smart board where we can not only be working on the smart board, but we're in a process of trying to make it where we can have in the top right or left corner, you can have video conferencing in real time with the Emergency Operations Center. So it's almost like you're there. It's still not quite as good as being there, but it's almost like you're there. We purchased patrol rifles and shotguns as a result of a sale of seized firearms. The legislature passed a law, it went into effect, I believe, in September, that allowed us to do that. And we were able to purchase much needed patrol rifles and shotguns for Patrol and Criminal Investigation Division, our SWAT team, again, at no cost to the taxpayer. We've improved working relationships tremendously with Tyler Police Department. And finally, the final one is we're saving about $2,200 per vehicle on the striping package on our patrol vehicles. They were costing about $2,700. We're getting it done for $500 now. And I heard somebody say the other day, I've wasted a lot of money on restriping vehicles. I'll tell you, unless something was late model, low mileage, you see many black and white vehicles still going with a sheriff's sign on it now. That's because they're older vehicles that I do not think it would be the right thing for me to do to spend another $500 on top of $2,700 to have that vehicle striped just where it looks pretty and looks just like the rest of them. So. This slide here is just kind of a direct result of me showing you where we've improved the coverage, the patrol coverage, the response times. I ran a query, I believe, last week. The average response time now for a deputy out in the unincorporated part of the county is 15 minutes and 20 seconds, I believe. When I first started campaigning, I heard many times, wherever I went throughout the county, sometimes it would take 45 minutes, an hour, and sometimes an hour and a half to respond. You can't have results like on the slide right here without having the proper number of deputies on the street and having a proper response time. And what that is, I believe there's 11 or 12 there that were, these are on view arrests, where we had an officer out there that answered a burglar alarm and caught burglars, or we caught them in the act of burglarizing a business or whatever. But since December 24th of this last year, up until June 26th, we've done those, and there's been a total number of 27 defendants arrested on view, and we've cleared 18 additional offenses from the rest of those 27. These are just town hall meetings I've conducted. We've done 8, I believe. And now I want to get into the staffing, salaries, and employee turnover is what y'all want to hear, I believe, what I came here for. And to just kind of lead into it, sheriff's office employees are often required to work with less than 2 days off per week, and this is mostly in the jail and criminal investigation division. This is necessary due to being understaffed and unable to accommodate those days off. And when I say understaffed, I'm not saying that we haven't been allotted the proper number of positions in patrol or CID. We're doing good there. We could use a little help probably in communications and in the jail, which we'll get into in a minute. But what this is mostly from, we've got the positions to hire, but we have that revolving door where we have the open positions. We're continually interviewing for new employees, and then you have that 6 months to a year before they're fully competent to turn them loose on their own to do the job of a law enforcement officer. So that's what the presentation is mostly about. We're required to be on duty 24/7, all holidays, weekends, and bad weather days. At this time, we've examined over 1,200 job applications, and we're hiring about 1 out of 10 now, I think. It's changed a little bit since and that's not 1 out of 10 we interview. That's 1 out of 10 of the applications we get in. Because I can tell you, just like Ms. Fleming said earlier, I'm not going to lower the standards to hire somebody to have a warm body if they're not fit and if they're not the proper background and personality to fit in with the way we need to go in law enforcement in Smith County. They're not going to be hired. I would rather work shorthanded than I had lower the standards. One thing that I'm proud of, and there's no wood to knock over here, but it's going on 1 year and 7 months now, and the attorney that commonly defends us in lawsuits, he probably jinxed me when he said it, but we're going on 1 year and 7 months now, and we haven't had one lawsuit against the citizens of Smith County because of the sheriff's office. So, and as I was saying, we're experiencing costly turnover of personnel manifested by additional training and startup costs. Exit interviews have indicated the following reasons for personnel leaving: non-competitive law enforcement pay, the retirement matching, which was better, and anytime you have something that's good and you lose it and you look around and other people don't lose it, they still got it, it's hard for them to adjust to. Losing vacation time, and that has pretty much been corrected, because what was happening when I took office is many of the employees, especially in the jail, they had a lot of compensatory time built up, and in patrol where they had a lot of time built up, were required, when they put in for vacation time, they were required to change that to compensatory time. Compensatory time they never lose. It doesn't go away. Whenever they quit or retire, they get paid for it. Vacation time, you can only carry over so much, it does go away. So I understand why it was being done, but I promise you I won't be doing it, because it is not good for morale, and I don't think it's the right thing to do. You get the compensatory time that from working over and losing a day off, it turns into compensatory time. But then because of being understaffed, we can't then allow them to take off compensatory time. So it's just like a piggy bank over here that they can't touch. It's not like a savings account where they can go get money if they need to. It's for when they leave, separate from employment. And some of the things that I proposed recently to the Commissioners Court, and as I told you, there's a lot of proposals here, and I'm not so naive to think we're going to get all of them in 1 year. I just want us them to be considered and try to start working in the right direction to make it where more people want to work for the Smith County Sheriff's Office. One is the ability to hire at a level commensurate to experience and competency level. And I think I'll have a slide that'll go into that in a minute. Paying for college degrees upon employment without having to wait 1 year to get that payment for the degree. Paying down compensatory time upon reaching 240 hours. Right now, it's 480 hours, or 12 weeks that they have to reach before they pay down any of it. And I'll get into it in a minute. I think I have a slide that covers it. But bringing the salaries in line with other sheriff's offices of proportional size to Smith County. Again, this isn't something that can be done in 1 year, but I believe in this presentation here, I've given a 1-year plan, a 2-year plan, a 3-year plan, and if needed, we could go to a 4-year plan, which would make it much easier to reach where we need to be over a longer period of time rather than all at one time. Bringing the retirement matching increment back 2 to 1 incrementally. I'm not saying we go from 1.25 up to 2, but I can tell you all the sheriff's offices around, Gray County right now is at 2 to 1, and I believe Henderson County is at 2.5 to 1. And we're back at 1.25. Proper staffing of patrol, and what I'm talking about there, the crisis intervention team. We've got an opportunity, which I believe I saw an email today from Carmen in Commissioner's Court, that they are going to take that up on the 22nd, I believe, where the Andrews Center is giving us a grant which will pay for 2 CIT officers for 3 years. And what a CIT officer does, they work in conjunction with the emergency rooms throughout the county and the Andrews Center on what we call POWs, or peace officer warrants, or emergency detention warrants, where we have somebody mentally ill that we have to go take into custody and take them to, against their will, to a hospital for treatment. And I can tell you that is a very big burden on our patrol unit right now. And once we go to ETMC, Mother Frances, UT Health Center, wherever, more times than not, we have to sit there and babysit them for 3-4 hours and take that deputy off the street. So this is a way we're trying to counteract some of that to keep the coverage out on the street where it needs to be. Communications is one place, and detention are the main 2 places. I've asked for increases this year, and I'll try to justify that to you here in a minute. And one of the examples of the ability to hire at a level commensurate to competency, the patrol deputy, I'll give you an example of one. We had an officer from the Dallas Police Department, has 10 years with Dallas Police Department. I believe his wife is the main breadwinner in the family, and she is getting a job in Tyler or in Smith County somewhere. He called us to entertain the idea of going to work for the sheriff's office. And he was willing to take a pretty good cut in pay, but what prevented him from finally coming over was the fact that I could not hire him at his experience level. I had to hire him at the level of a Deputy 1, which is the same level that we get somebody out of the jail that has no experience whatsoever, we send to the academy and start there. And if we can make some strides in some of these smaller things like this, I think it'll be a great step in the right direction of trying to not only retain employees, but to get employees interested in coming to work for us to start with. And we would determine that experience level because I can tell you, I've seen some 15-year veterans in law enforcement. I've been doing it 37 years. I've seen some people that's been on 15 years. Some of those people had 15 cumulative years of experience. Some of them had 1 year 15 times. So there's a difference. That's why you have to go in and through interviewing and assessments to make a determination. Am I hiring somebody in with 10 or 15 years that's not as good as a brand new one I hired in? So that's something we need to keep. If we are allowed to do that at some point, we need to be prudent and stay on top of that. This is already, and this could have been, I wasn't here when this happened, it could have been an oversight. Don't know if the sheriff's office asked for it in the previous administration, but I'm understanding from our HR director that this is already available to the district attorney's office and the auditor's office, so hopefully we can rectify that. Paying stipend for college degrees upon employment. Right now, if I have somebody that has showed the initiative to get out of high school or even after high school and put themselves through college, a 4-year degree, 2-year degree, whichever, they show that initiative, I can't attract them to the sheriff's office very well because we're not going to pay them for that degree until they've showed that they're going to be here 365 days. And I can tell you that degree is beneficial to me as an employer just from the initiative they've shown to get that degree than it is by waiting 365 days. Having pay in lieu of compensatory time, paying down comp time during the fiscal year would be very beneficial. And I'll show you some ways that I think we can do it a little bit. You know, you can do it in different degrees. Just because I'm saying this is the way I think it'd be good doesn't mean there's not other plans there that we could reach an agreement on. In past years, and currently employees receive compensatory time and were unable to take it off due to low staffing levels. They took compensatory time in lieu of vacation. I've talked about that. The salaries lag resulted from both not being able to hire and not being able to retain employees. Right now, comp time is the only thing when we're below staffing levels that we have to have. There's nothing else that we can do to have that employee do the work rather than give them compensatory time, which I've already told you, I can give it to them, but it's not beneficial to them until they leave employment. So if we can come up with something there, and I've got some figures here in a minute that will show you some things I believe we can do. The amount of work, just because we're short-staffed, hasn't changed. So what we have to do is pull people in on their days off, cancel vacation time, and I can tell you, canceling vacation time in jail, I don't even like going into jail. I hope none of my employees hear this. I don't even like going down there to go walk around, and this didn't just start when I became sheriff. I do go there. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean I don't go there. But it takes a special person to work in a detention facility. It takes somebody, and they need their full 2 days rest. We don't need to have them have a trip planned or something planned and say, by the way, we don't call them and say, would you mind working? Do you want to work? Because of the jail commission, we have to have the proper level of staffing on the floor at any one time or we're out of compliance. And I don't want to be the next sheriff, and I'm not casting any shadows on the former sheriff. I'm sure he tried as well as he could, but I don't want to be the one that gets us under another remedial order into jail. I want to be forward-thinking, looking down the road and not looking into the mountainside. I want to see what's on the other side. And I think is the prudent thing to do is to stay ahead of where we need to be and where we need to go. Because when I had the vision, when I decided to run for sheriff, I didn't decide, hey, there's a great job to step into and I don't have to do anything, just draw a paycheck. That's not the case. I knew it wasn't the case. I had the vision, not what it was. I had the vision of what it can be. And I still have that vision, and I'm telling you, we can get there. The total compensatory time for the sheriff's office, a lot of this was accrued over multiple years, so this wouldn't be what you would see at every annual budget. There's the jail, the sheriff's office, communications, everybody has 9,829 comp time hours accrued. 884,574 of salary and benefits was returned to the general fund at the end of FY 2013 from the sheriff's office, because the only thing I can spend it for, only thing I'm allowed to spend it for at this point is if that position is filled. If that position is not filled, that's where all this money comes from. So you can tell from $884,000, we went short-staffed in FY 2013 a great deal. For $175,785, and I don't want to mislead you, you'd have to add 41% benefit package on top of that because you have to pay benefits. For a little over $200,000 of the $884,000, we could have paid off every hour of comp time in the whole sheriff's office and still sent back in the mid to high $600,000 to $708,000 into the general fund. Not only is that what I believe should happen, just imagine what that will do to boost the morale of the employees. And on the other side, just think of what some of the problems of the morale are now. we've got to do something to improve the morale, because I can tell you the morale is directly responsible for being able to attract and retain employees. It's directly responsible for losing employees because we don't have the people. We have to make people come in and work. It's just a vicious cycle, and we've got to break that cycle. Turnover rate by division. We had 33 people that left in 9 months. So what I did, I took the 9 months, divided the 9 into 33, multiplied by 12 to get 1 year projection, what 1 year would be, which would give us a 19.5% turnover rate in the jail. Same thing, same math. Dispatch, 44.4% turnover rate. Dispatch is one of those positions. A dispatcher is a lifeline to the deputy that's responding to all these calls out on the street. Very important position. So just realize when we hire and when I came into office, I was 9 dispatchers short when I came into office out of 27. So just imagine how long it would take to get somebody with no experience in dispatching up to the level they need to be to entrust them in the deputies responding on the street. And we have 4 vacancies at this time. The sheriff's office, which is the remainder of the department, which would be environmental, criminal investigation, patrol, and all the administrative and support positions. We had 9 that left in 9 months, so we've just got an 11.2% turnover rate, which is probably, I haven't checked against other places, but it's probably not too far out of line. It may be just a little bit high, but it's not astronomically high, like communications in the jail is. The total employees, we have 226 in the jail, 27 in communications. In the sheriff's office enforcement side, we have 109 for a total of 362 positions. And there again, there's the turnover rates. These are just kind of rehashing what I've already said. The total number of applicants that we looked at applications on and interviewed in FY 2013 is 980. We hired 91. So that's somewhere around 1 in 10. We considered, in FY 2014, from October to March, we considered 262 for employment. We hired 9, and we have 34 in the process of being hired at this time. I believe, I can't remember, somewhere around 12 to 14 openings we have in the jail right now, I believe, Commissioner's Court Tuesday. And I can tell you, it changes just as often as the number of inmates we have out of county changes. So it's a different number every week. So, and what I want to say about that is we put a formula together with the help of some people a lot smarter than me. And I know law enforcement, but I don't do a lot of mathematical equations to come up with that. But I hope I'm smart enough to seek out those people that know how to do it. But after doing that, in a year's time, now I don't want to be deceiving on this because a lot of those positions that we already have there are of some benefit, but they're primarily our field training officers, for instance, that have to train the new patrol officers, that have to train the new detention officers, that have to train the new dispatchers. That's 2 people you have together everywhere. We only counted one of those people there. So we took what it was costing us for the second one being trained, and we came up with somewhere between the high 1 million to 2 million a year that's costing to retrain and the hiring process. And we came up with how much time, and this is all inside the sheriff's office, how much time Lieutenant Strickland and administrative assistant and our personnel on the interview boards, we have 5 on each interview board, where it be CID, where it be promotional board, hiring board, or whatever. We averaged the time up that it takes to do all of that, and that's how we came up with those figures. Law enforcement pay and benefits for counties of and below comparable size to Smith County. They're kind of in order of their population, but the average population, when you average it out, is about 170,000. And there's 11 counties there, 12 including Smith County. And what we did, we took and I want to stick over just the starting pay. Among the average of those 11 counties, our detention starting pay is about $4,400 below the average of 11. Patrol is $3,300. CID or criminal investigation is almost $12,000, and communications is about $5,000 below. And this is on communications, especially. Commissioner's Court and the judge in 2010 gave a pretty substantial raise, so you can imagine where they were prior to 2010 if they're already behind this much now. So, and again, I'm not saying that in 1 year we can fix this, but we've got to start moving, make some movement in the right direction to give these men and women of the sheriff's office that serve you each and every day some hope that I did the right thing. It's right of me to stay here. I want to complete my employment here. I want to retire from Smith County, and just give them some hope is all we're looking for. One comparison that has caused the sheriff's office to lose 3 positions, and when you get to the criminal investigation or detective level, you've got significant experience, you've got significant training that you've been through to get to that level, which means you've got significant time invested in that individual. And we've lost 3 to the district attorney's office because they are able to pay their district attorney's investigators who serve pay. I'm not, again, not casting stones at the DA's office. I'm glad they get paid this. But if you would see the job description of what a detective does, that he starts the investigation when the crime occurs, and he brings that case and presents it to the district attorney's office, most of the work has been done. So you have a $10,000 difference starting pay on a DA's investigator and a detective. Again, that we need some work in that direction. Right now, a detective, I consider making detective grade a promotion. Unfortunately, the previous administration didn't see it that way, but most law enforcement agencies do. And what happens if I'm a patrol officer, which is where we get most of the detectives from, and what I consider promote to detective, I take a pay cut. You make the same pay, but now instead of me furnishing you your uniform, you have to buy your own clothes, your street clothes, your ties, your coats, and things of that nature that we give them no compensation whatsoever for. So we need to make some adjustments. We've got about 24 detectives. It wouldn't be a significant amount of money, but it would be a step in the right direction. This is what Tyler Police Department does. I've been around the nation. I've been in 48 of the 50 states when I worked at my previous job, worked with some great law enforcement agencies, and historically, everywhere you go, the sheriff's office is a little bit behind the police department, and it's always going to be that way. But we've got to get closer. We've got to close the gap a little bit, because these are things, if y'all remember, I think, last week, you saw in the Tyler paper the whole city of Tyler's salaries. Patrol officer, Patrol Sergeant 4 makes more than both of my chief deputies, which are the second highest paid next to me in the sheriff's office. We lost a detective recently to the city of Tyler Police Department. He is making more money as a probationary police officer than he made as a detective at the sheriff's office. And again, I want to point out, this isn't me casting stones at the Commissioner's Court. It's up to the sheriff to bring this to their attention. If they don't know what's going on, they can't do anything. So merely that's what I've been doing, is bringing it to the attention where we can work together and head in the right direction to make some progress. But so the salaries you saw for Tyler PD in the paper the other day, those are base salaries. If you're in the narcotics division or on the SWAT team, you add $2,700 a year to that. If you work after 10 a.m., I believe it is, you add another $1,200. You work after 2 a.m., you add another $2,400 a year to that base salary. We don't have any of that. We have some of the longevity, and we've got the certificate pay of advanced, intermediate, masterpiece officer. We do have that, but you can see most of ours are zeros over on the right side. This is just a 3-year plan of what I felt we could do to get us up to the average of 11. And again, there's no way you can do the 1-year plan, probably not the 2-year plan. And again, we may even need to go out to a 4-year plan. But a 3-year plan is 5, 13, 7, and 7.5%. But if you go out to 4-year plan, it's even less than that. But again, it will show the employees that we're headed in the right direction. People care about them, and they want to take care of the people that are taking care of them while they sleep. That's just vacation hours lost in 2012 and 2013, and that has pretty much stopped completely now. The only way they will lose vacation time now, it won't be because me changing it over to comp time. It's just because they didn't keep up with their math and they didn't put in for it and they didn't take it. So it's not because we don't let them take it. Unless there may be some instances of that in the jail if we're too short-staffed to allow them to take vacation. One difference that was pointed out to me by our jail staff was that Road and Bridge we send trustees out there every day to do tasks, which they need to be there. They need to be working. They don't need to be in there watching Captain Kangaroo or something on a color TV. They need to be out working. I don't even think they have Captain Kangaroo anymore, do they? But they get paid $3,168 starting pay more than the jailers, and this is the basic job description of a detention officer. 1 page, 2 page, two full pages of duties that they have to do. They work with the worst of the worst, and I tell you, if y'all want to come visit the jail, I'll be glad to give you a tour. There's some bad people there, very bad people there, and they have to deal with the worst of the worst, where we pick out the cream of the crop and send out to them for them to make $3,000 a year starting pay more. So communications, and what I want to do here is just show you the call volume, the shared call volume that goes through our 911 center. We dispatch in Smith County for every agency except for Department of Public Safety, Tyler Police Department, and Lindale Police Department. Ernie, I think it's $5, I believe.
Yeah. You talk too much.
You say red, white, and blue? I've got the microphone. But what I want to show you here is the call volume. This is a 6-month period. We dispatch for all these agencies: Smith County, Art, Bullard, Troop, White House, Winona, Precinct 1 through 5 constables, and the total call volume just of those agencies in 6 months is 18,265. That's not how many times the phone rang. That's not how many times they had to talk to complainants on the phone. That's how many calls actually got dispatched. And that's not dispatching just one unit. I can tell you on a certain level, which most levels of ours, we're going to dispatch 2 units. One is a backup. So the communications number of calls on Fireside in FY 2013 was 6102. You can tell we're looking to break that in this fiscal year because they're already at 6 months at 3819. And what we pretty much have to do in order to cover all this call volume is to have 3 dispatchers on at one time. We really need 4, but we have 3 at one time, and I can tell you when it gets busy, you might be calling, even with emergency call, and have to be put on hold for 4 or 5 minutes, and that's not very good when you have an emergency. But there's number of traffic stops per agency, October 13th to March 31st, 2013, 6 months. Traffic stops right at 8,000. I can tell you what happens on a traffic stop. We have different radio channels. We have 3 different ones. We have main, we have information, and we have fire channel. If you make a traffic stop, you're going to tax both dispatchers on the main channel because that's where you're going to check out on traffic. And then when you have to run somebody's criminal history or if they're wanted or not, you're going to do that on the information channel. So each time of those 8,000 in 6 months that you key your mic to talk to the dispatcher on a traffic call, you can double that because you're talking to 2 different dispatchers on the radio. October 1st, 2013 to March 31st, 2013, dispatch calls and traffic stops combined in a 6-month period is 30,078. And we're doing it with the same number of dispatchers we've had for several years. So what I want to bring to your attention here, and what I've talked to the Commissioners Court about, and hopefully, even if I don't get the number I'm asking for, maybe we'll get part of that. At least we're moving in the right direction. But White House Police Department, and again, I'm not blaming this on White House. If I was White House and I could have done it, I'd be dancing all the way to the bank. But they had 18 sworn officers when this happened. They had 5 dispatchers. And about 5-6 months before I took office, White House went to the sheriff's office and said, hey, will you do our dispatching services? They said yes, and they said, we'll do it for $30,000 a year. You can't pay one dispatcher for $30,000, not with benefits. So what happened there, we tremendously increased our call volume because White House is way above all these other agencies I've talked to you about on call volume and on traffic stops. But we didn't add one dispatcher. We're bursting at the seams in communications, which is a very dangerous road to go down when they are the lifeline to the law enforcement officers, not just us, but all these other agencies. I don't think we should have, without getting more personnel, I would never have approved it if I had anything to do with it. I would have never taken that deal because, not without more personnel, but with more personnel, sure, let's do it. It makes sense because then you're on the same channel, which is a very, very advantageous to law enforcement. We can then listen to when they're in trouble. They can listen when we're in trouble, and they can back us up. That's what it's all about. That's what law enforcement is about, taking care of one another. But they had 1,720 traffic stops during the same time period, 6 months, and 1,288 calls for service. You can see what extra load that put on our dispatch without getting another dispatcher. So we've got to, and dispatchers have more things to do than dispatch. They have to validate our stolen property, validate our wanted persons, and things of that nature. If they're not validated correctly, if we don't take some property that's stolen out of the computer, if we don't take a wanted individual out of the computer that's wanted and he gets rearrested, just imagine the lawsuit you're looking at. So from that perspective, we really need to make some movement to increase the size of dispatch. These are funds that were received in the general fund from contract costs for dispatching, a total from those entities of $167,000, which would more than pay for the additional personnel that I'm asking for in dispatch, if it were allowed to go for that rather than back into the general fund. And this is positions I'm asking for this year. This year, the telecommunications, the TCO, which is Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, which was formerly TCLOS, mandates now that the dispatchers be licensed rather than just have a certification. And what comes with that is a mandate that in a 2-year period, they receive so much training, whether we want to do it or not, or whether they need it or not. And I can tell you they always need it. We even look for giving more intermediate advanced training to our dispatchers that have more experience, because I don't believe in dumbing down the training and have somebody that's been there a long time go to basic level training. It does nobody any good. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of taxpayer money. So in order to do that, now we have to let them off for the time to go do the training. We have to pay for the training, because I can tell you, they did this in mid-budget year. So we lost a dispatcher for, I think, about a week that they said, you got to let her go. So what we did, we just took her off dispatch and sent her to the training she had to have to catch up. So they didn't mean business. It's not, hey, you send them if you want to. We have records that we're required to forward to them to make sure their training is up to date. So we're asking for a telecommunications training coordinator, which would be put in a supervisor position where they could coordinate all the dispatch training. And I can tell you, I was very fortunate last year. I used a supervisor position, so he's doubling in both of those. But I was very fortunate in being able to hire a retired Department of Public Safety, NCIC, National Crime Information Center, Texas Crime Information Center, and Onyx expert that did all of DPS's training. He retired, and I was able to get him to go to work for us. So that's who we have in that position. But he's taking up a position right now that really should be used to supervise the dispatchers on duty. I'm asking for 3 telecommunications positions. If you have 8-hour shifts you're working on, it takes you 4 people to fill an 8-hour shift, because you got the 3 shifts, and then you have the relief factor built in for the extra one. So I'm asking for 3 telecommunications positions, and then I'm asking for a validator position, where they validate the stolen property and the the wanted persons and things of that they're required to make sure that they're still outstanding. And requesting for a clerk position, there are now be changed over to a warrant services clerk with a little bit of raise and a step involved in it. We've got two there. One's been there 5 years. One's been there 10 years. One's making 25, maybe 26,000. One's making 27. So the one that's been there 5 years more is only making $1,000 difference than the one that's been there five more years. So just trying to take care of the people that take care of you. The staffing of the jail facilities upon completion of phase 2, which will be, Jeff, I'm not sure, it's still middle of August or end of, who knows? Right, okay. Phase 2 and then phase 4, which will be the final phase where we're able to start bringing inmates back in from out of county. And I'll tell you, I just love going to Commissioner's Court every Tuesday morning and watching Commissioner Phillips. You know, you can tell when Major Farmer gets up and gets ready to give a jail report, he sits up in his seat because he likes to keep those out-of-county numbers low, as do I. But unfortunately, I don't have a lot to do with it. But 19, is it 19 that we had this week? But we've been as much, before I got there, over 200, is that? 268. Wow. So in cooperation with the state district judges, the county court of law judges, we've been able to bring that down. But my fear is, once this new jail opens up, is that these judges are going to say, okay, they're tired of seeing them in front of their, in the courtroom and hadn't had anywhere to put them. I can tell you they're going to start putting them in jail. That's one issue we have. Then we're going to bring the ones in from out of county. Right now it's at 20, but what happens is that's not the peak level. That's not even an average peak level. That's way low level. What I have to be prepared for as a sheriff and the gatekeeper for the jail is the jail commission requires me to have the proper ratio of inmates to detention officers. And they don't say, hey, do this if you want to. This is a suggestion. You will have. Because what they'll do, they'll come in when they do the jail inspection annually. The first thing they'll do is go through your paperwork and see what your staffing level was on each day of the year. They'll just take out random samples. And what is required to happen in these cells up there, in the indirect supervision cells, the detention officer throughout the 24-hour period is required to check each cell and sign his or her name that they checked it every hour on the hour, 24 hours a day. We had a suicide in the jail, it's been probably 6-8 months ago. When they come in, when we do our investigation, we have to furnish all that information. We had one that went over the hour and it's like an hour and 4 minutes. We got dinged for that, and for about 30 days, I think. So it didn't really hurt us, but it will hurt us if we're not under a remedial order. It would have hurt. But since we were already under a remedial order for several years, it didn't really affect us that much, but it will later. But we've got to have the proper number of jailers, and what I believe has got to happen, and I believe it will happen. I've got a meeting with Commissioner Ward next week, and he's on top of the construction of the new jail. He's there every day just about. But I believe we've got to decide that the monkey's going to fall on my back if we open this new jail with a minimum number of personnel to maybe have a 50 person 50 more that we can bring in, and then the judges start sending more to jail, and crime gets up, we arrest more. I don't want to be the culprit when we reach the magic number. We've got empty beds up there. I don't want to be the one that you look at and say, you didn't plan properly, and we have to send them out of county at expense to you, the taxpayer, when I've got beds up here but no personnel to maintain those beds. So I think it's very important for us, and I'm open to communication to maybe submit 4 or 5 different scenarios of, okay, if we have this many personnel, we can bring in this many inmates. If we have this many, we can bring in this many inmates. But I think what can't happen is I can't see that gradually increasing or rapidly increasing and then run out and hire somebody, because it takes us 8 weeks to get somebody on the job right now because of the process. And it will also take us another, by the time they get their training and their orientation and their FTO program, another 16 weeks probably before we can turn them loose on their own. So you can see, if I see the problem coming, I can't react fast enough to catch up. So I just want you to know that I'm going to ask for the proper number of personnel to what I believe that we need to be ready for, and then hopefully work with the commissioners and the judge on a weekly basis, monthly basis, whatever, to project what we see, any increase or anything like that. I believe it's prudent for us to work on that and just make sure that we're ready for whatever we're going to be faced with. But employee staffing issues facing the Smith County Jail, the staffing requirements, again, are set by the Texas Commission on Jail Standards. One thing that goes to play in this, we'll have 1,100 and something beds once this new facility comes online. But historically, you have about a 95% that you can fill that jail. That's because of male to female inmates. You only have the proper number of beds for each one. And it also goes with classification. We can't classify a murder suspect with a forgery suspect. They have to go in different housing. So because of all that, we can't ever be 100% full. So you lose a few beds there. Inmates not suitable for direct supervision. This new facility is direct supervision, which means our detention officer will be inside the cell with the inmates. There's several counties that do that now. I fully expect to lose a handful, maybe a double handful of employees because they're not going to work in that environment. I have to be ready for that. And I've been told by Sheriff Terry Box of Collin County, who's been a sheriff for well over 30 years, I've known him for all those 30 years, he told me to expect that. He has also graciously, for the last 9 months or so, or probably longer than that, been training our personnel at no expense, no cost to the citizens, the taxpayers, to get them ready for direct supervision. The relief is required for a direct supervision facility. In other words, you got the jailer in there with the inmates. Anytime he goes outside in the hallway, we're out of compliance. So for him to go to the restroom or go eat, we have to relieve him before he can leave that facility. Transport within and outside the jail will increase because of the numbers, and right now it won't be tremendously bad with just the 19 coming back if we keep it close to that, but it's still going to increase. Inmate infirmary must be staffed with a detention officer if we have anybody in one of the beds in the infirmary, and your ratios aren't very good then because we only have 10 or 12 beds there, Jeff? 12. Have 12 beds there, and if we got 2 of them full, it still takes one detention officer. That one detention officer, if he's in a pod, is the proper staffing for 48 inmates, but because of the infirmary, it's one for however many you have. Video visitation, transportation in the old part of the jail, which we're going to try to minimize that by making full use out of the new part, but we will still have a lot of inmates in the old part of the jail. Cell checks to maintain the compliance because of what I told you earlier about the 1 hour, us being over. I've dropped down the requirement to 45 minutes. That way, if we're over a little bit, we're still within the hour. And I'm just going to go through. This is just a request where I had the jail commission to say, okay, if we open 2 floors, 188 inmates a floor, if we open 2 floors, this is the personnel that you're going to need total, which is 256. And I believe that comes down to, if we got to what our relief factor should be now, and that is going to be over 60 employees, but just for the 2 floors, with a 1.63 relief rate, would be 58, I believe. But I think there's some, we see where we are here pretty quick, but we got to do it pretty quick because it's coming on us quick. Jeff, when is it supposed to open where we put the inmates in?
Sheriff, I think end of October, but they don't
So probably up in November sometime. And I've already told you how long it takes us to hire and then get them trained. And if we hire any significant number, whether it be 58, whether it be 40, whether it be whatever, they're required to have their certification within 1 year. The way we do that now is we're hiring 5 or 6 or 7 at a time. We can do that within a year. But if we hire a great number, we're going to have to train some of them before they ever go on the floor. Because we can't, within a year, let 40 people off to go to training. And I've taken enough of y'all's time. Other thing is vehicles. Our vehicles, we have 102 vehicles in the sheriff's office. And the ones that I see that are critical right now that we need to replace, and the commissioners know I've been talking about this before I took office, try to get as many vehicles as we can. And of course, the year I took office, that's back when we had the real bad budget year. So I understand that somewhat. But we've got some, especially in the patrol part, detective part, and the transport of inmate. I know you don't want me transporting inmates 5, 6, 7 counties away in a vehicle with 150 or 200,000 miles. It's not the right thing to do. And the same thing, you don't want people responding to your call for help or one of your loved ones call for help in a vehicle with 150 or 200,000 miles, because they stay at the county barn. I've spent about $125,000 this year. That's on the law enforcement side, and probably another $12,000 to $15,000 on the jail side in maintenance just this year alone. And I've got to make that last all the way up to September 30th. So we need some help on the vehicles. And the only thing different on this than what I presented to the Commissioners Court the other day, I presented because I didn't realize the fact about their obligation, their pledge they had made. So if you remember this number, if y'all saw that, was $398,000, but because of their pledge they made, and I fully intend for them to keep their pledge. There's no need making one if you're not intending to keep it. But that caused, if we got everything in here that I've asked for, the 58 employees, the 16 employees, what else? And then the 5, I think, in dispatch, it would be a $2.1 million increase. But I want you to understand, some of that is on me, but there's nothing I can do about the jail part. I'm mandated to do that. I don't have any say in that. And that is the big lump of the $2.1 million. With that, I'll take any questions, and again, appreciate you inviting me here.
I need it today. Who staffs the Office of Personnel Responsibility? This is a two-part question. How is the Sheriff's Department prepared for and addressing the cartel influx, especially since DFW and I-20 are such favored locations for cartel activity, which directly threatens Smith County and Texas?
I'm probably going to ask you to ask me that one again, because that's two totally different questions. The first, who staffs it? The Office of Professional Responsibility is staffed.
Personnel responsibility. Personal responsibility.
I don't have anything. They might have misunderstood. It's Office of Professional Responsibility is the one I talked about.
Why don't you go ahead and answer who staffs that,
Okay.
because that's what they meant.
The one that staffs that is an individual I've known for most of my law enforcement career. I knew him when he was a trooper. He made Highway Patrol Sergeant. And in his last several years, he was a lieutenant in the Office of Inspector General with the Department of Public Safety, as Bobby Strickland. And Bobby is an outstanding asset to the Smith County Sheriff's Office. I don't know how he keeps up with everything he keeps up with, but he's doing an outstanding job, and I'm proud to have him, as well as I am some of the other hires I got. I was able to hire one of my chief deputies is a former Highway Patrol captain with the Department of Public Safety here for numerous years in Smith County. And my other chief deputy is a former game warden major who I've known for 30-something years. He was a game warden when I was a detective at the sheriff's office in Longview years ago, back when my hair wasn't great. Still not quite as bad as Max, but. Okay, the other part,
Okay.
I think.
How is the Sheriff's
Okay,
Department?
I remember that one. the sheriff's office, as late as yesterday, I met with Chief Carlson and my Special Services Lieutenant, who is over our narcotics unit, Paul Black, who I've also known from most of my law enforcement career. He was a narcotics officer here at the city of Tyler when I was rookie detective at Gray County back in the late 70s. But we talked, and we have, I can't go into detail on it, but we have things going on in Smith County right now, as we have in the past, that have cartel ties, and it would scare you to death if I could tell you what it is. It's things that we've never had to worry about before in law enforcement. But I will tell you, I left the sheriff's office in Gray County in 1987 when Director Long was over the Drug Enforcement Administration. That's who I went to work for. I went to the DEA back when we had this war on drugs, which we've never had. Back then, I will tell you that all of the cocaine and things of that nature was coming from Bogota, Colombia, through Miami, and you can just see where it's changed. Everything now is coming through the Mexican border, and is coming for every little bit we're able to interdict. It's probably astronomical if we knew the numbers, what is getting by. When I was with Drug Enforcement Administration, I was stationed in Denver, Colorado. I was on the clandestine methamphetamine laboratory team, where we go out and get the methamphetamine labs. Finally, the federal government woke up, and they started managing better the chemicals, precursor chemicals, that was allowing us to make that methamphetamine. When they did that, who can get all those chemicals without any restriction? Mexico. So all of the powder methamphetamine and all of the ice methamphetamine, which is even worse because you smoke it instead of injecting it, which is always worse, comes from Mexico. They just got on Interstate 40, day before yesterday, I think, they got 7 pounds of ice methamphetamine, which is a lot of methamphetamine. It's not like marijuana where you see a ton or 2 tons. 7 pounds is a significant amount. But what I will say is, where back in those days, if we were doing an undercover deal, we wanted to buy kilo quantities of cocaine, we'd have to go to Houston or Dallas. And I can submit to you today that if you have the proper cooperating individual, any one day in the city of Tyler, Texas, you can buy those quantities of drugs here. And that's because they have been able to organize to the point through the cartels. The cartels, what they do, they get their family members living here, where they have the communications and everything they need. They don't come here, they stay in Mexico, but they have people here working for them. I'm not saying that to scare you, I'm telling you that because it's the truth.
Larry, we've got the right man. Thank you. I know that your presentation has been growing since your election, and that's scary. But the news from the border is more scary. As our senior law enforcement official, what do you see in the immediate future for Smith County and our citizens, budget issues aside? Are your public comments being pressured by the feds?
Absolutely not. I tell you what, I was very fortunate to spend all but 2 years of my law enforcement career of 37 years here in East Texas, starting at 20 years old for Gray County Sheriff's Office, going to DEA, which is the only time I was out of the Texas, but I promise you I got back here as quick as I could. I was in Denver, Colorado, worked the whole state of Colorado and Wyoming, and in getting back here, we are very fortunate here in Smith County, and always have been throughout my whole career, of having, until the weather gets changed from Washington, D.C., and it trickles down to the division office in Dallas and down to Tyler. But from the perspective of the FBI here in Tyler, Drug Enforcement Administration in Tyler, ICE here in Tyler, ATF here in Tyler, which is where I was able to retire from, we are very fortunate to have law enforcement officers that we work with at that level every day. And we're going to have an operation here sometime in the future that you'll see. We work very well together with our counterparts here. But I'll tell you, my fear is, at some point, they're going to get the mandate from above, which they have to follow rule, that might not be the same thinking, the same way of thinking that we do here. And I can assure you, even though I guess most of my career has been at the federal level, I was blessed enough to have spent 11 years, my first 11 years in law enforcement, going from a patrol deputy to a captain of the criminal investigation division at the local level. Therefore, and I was able to dodge that lobotomy I probably would have gotten to go into the federal service. So I still think, and I would have still been a local law enforcement officer if I could have made a living for my family that I wanted to make, I never would have left Gray County. But I think everything, again, is what I said earlier. I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to continue to be able to work together with federal, state, and local law enforcement hand in hand, and that the best times for Smith County are yet to come.
Do you agree or disagree? Smith County should refuse all directives by federal agencies to permit any facility for processing or housing illegal refugees.
I'll go back to what Judge Scalia, I go back to use another thing where he ruled on. I think it had to do with the Second Amendment. I don't get my paycheck from the federal government. I don't work for the federal government. We're two separate entities that stand on their own. I work for you, the citizens of Smith County. That's who I'll continue working for, and will not take my orders from the federal government.
You have been quoted with two opposing viewpoints on open carry in Texas. I would like for you to clarify your opinion on open carry. Also, what does, quote, shall not be infringed, unquote, mean to you?
Okay, that's the first I've heard that I've had two different views on it. That means one of them had to be a lie, and I don't like to be classified as a liar, so there's a misunderstanding somewhere. What I was asked to do this is how it happened. News media calls us, and I just get a phone call that they called a chief of police in Smith County, and he refused. Oh, that's too political to comment on. And so when they called me, I said, that's too political to comment on. I was just pulling their leg. And they said, what? I said, I'm just joking. I said, I will give you a comment on it. This is my opinion as a citizen of this state and this county, just like anybody else. But it's more so from the perspective of being a law enforcement officer for 37 years and knowing what the potential is to happen. Number one, I am 110% in favor of concealed carry. I can't think of one instance, before concealed carry became an issue here in the state of Texas, go back to the men and women that own federally licensed silencers and machine guns. My answer is, and always has been, because I was asked it throughout the campaign, what do you think about that? Well, in all my years in law enforcement, I have not one time had to deal with anybody that is a legal machine gun or silencer owner. Because those individuals, that and the concealed carry individuals, are the people that are going to do the right thing, which should tell these individuals it's not the gun that's the problem, it's the people that's the problem. And so what I will say, my stance, I'm not going to oppose open carry. I'm not going to fight open carry. But they ask me my opinion, and if anybody asks me about my opinion, I'm not afraid to give it. My opinion is, I think it's going to create a lot of problems with open carry for law enforcement. I think it's going to create a lot of problems if you go in we don't have 7-Elevens anymore, but you go in a convenience store. You got your gun on, and you go in there, and it's in a process of being robbed. Or you're in there with your head in the coat box, and you turn around as being robbed, you're going to be the first one to get shot. I don't want to be, I encourage my detectives, even in this hot weather now, conceal your firearm. And they have the license to carry it, even on the places that concealed carry can't take it. It's common sense. It's not that I'm against open carry. I'm just not for it. I just don't think it's pretty. I'll go a little bit farther. You've got all of these people all of a sudden want to do open carry. And I still think you have a lot of people that do the concealed carry that's going to continue to do concealed carry if it passes, which I think is the prudent thing to do. But I even have law enforcement officers, and don't laugh at this now because it happens, they go to the restroom and they come back out and their gun's out of their holster. Where's your gun at? Oh no, it's laying in there in the bathroom. What's going to happen throughout Texas when people with the best intentions leave these guns laying around and kids get a hold of them? I just think you've got to think, use your head for something besides a hat rack.
Just so everybody knows, this is the same question of his thought on open carry. I don't disregard the questions. Please restate the cost of annual turnover, which is loss of trained staff.
It is in the neighborhood, the cost of turnover is in the neighborhood, in our estimation, with the figures in the we were given to compute it with, somewhere in upward parts of the higher $1 million to $2 million a year.
Please explain what dispatch does. Is this 911 calls? Are you saying the short staff causes emergency calls to be put on hold? Does this expose us to a lawsuit?
The lawsuit's the least of my worries. My bigger worries are not getting to the call we need to get to in time, not getting the medical help, the ambulance there in time. That's my concern more than a lawsuit. We'll worry about the lawsuit tomorrow. I'm worried more about the safety and the life, liberty, and property of the citizens of this county more than I am a lawsuit. But I just think that you always have to be forward-thinking in the position I'm in and not sit back and wait for things to happen before you use your knowledge that you've been blessed with, and my command staff and the men and women that work there do, and we brainstorm all the time. We don't want something that just, hey, that'd be nice to have. We don't have wants, we have needs. And you made me, I got off in the weeds, didn't I? But what was the question?
I wanted to know, is that the same as 911 calls?
Oh, okay. 911 is what it first opened up at the 911 center, is what they had the best intentions of opening up on Spur 248, with Tyler Police Department dispatch and the whole county being one happy family under one roof. Never came true. So they've got their own, we got ours own, EMS has their own dispatch. So we have all the agencies that I showed you on the PowerPoint, which is all but Tyler PD, DPS, and Lindale PD. We've got everybody else that we dispatch for. That's not just the 911 calls that come in, even though they call it the 911 center. We call it the Emergency Operations Center is what we call it. Every call for law enforcement service in the unincorporated part of Smith County, in White House, Troop, Ark, Overton, Winona, and I guess that's it, comes through that location, whether it be an emergency call, a cow out on the side of the road, or whatever. It takes the same time to deal with each one of those calls, and we have to prioritize. You may be calling about something, and hopefully you're able to get out of your mouth it's an emergency before they put you on hold. Otherwise, you'll be listening to crickets on the other end of the phone, which isn't good. So I hope that answered the question.
What needs to occur to allow the 10-year veteran officers to come into the department with a classification that is equal to his experience?
I believe we've already, since I brought that to the front, I'm optimistic. I've got a meeting with Commissioner Ward next week. I'll probably be getting with Commissioner Phillips, and I've already talked to Commissioner Nix. And I've got a meeting with Judge Baker either next Wednesday or Thursday. I haven't got a date and time yet. But I'm optimistic that we can reach some kind of decision to move the sheriff's office along and try to get caught up with where it needs to be and not get left behind, and where we can be the law enforcement entity where everybody around here looks at us as that's the way I want to do my business, that's the way I want to conduct my business, instead of us following in the footsteps of some of these other organizations.
Is it possible or practical to dual qualify patrol and jail personnel to increase short-term need coverage? And there's a second part. Well, I'll let you answer that part first.
Many of ours are already cross-trained because a lot of them come from the jail to patrol. But I can tell you, we've got the same problems on patrol. They got to have their time off too. And really, I've got four separate budgets. I've got an environmental budget, I've got a law enforcement budget, I've got a jail budget, I've got a communications budget. You're talking about pay coming from two different places to do that, even though it is the sheriff's office. But we don't have the personnel to take from patrol right now to do that either. We've got 48 men and women on the street, not at one time. On 4 shifts, we have 12 on a shift. And if one of them is off hurt, one of them's off sick, vacation, court, or whatever, that takes from that. We're staffed to have 12 on patrol at any one shift. But generally, we're somewhere between 8 and 10 because of all those other reasons I mentioned. And I can tell you, I don't want to go back to the days like it was when I came in here where you got 4 people covering 960 square miles. It's not safe for them. It's not safe for you, the citizens of this county.
Can observation cells within a pod be used in lieu of the infirmary to reduce staff demand?
No, the infirmary is what it is. The infirmary is where you go just short of having to go to the emergency room. But what the infirmary is going to do, we've never had one. What it's going to do is going to keep us from having to send those inmates out to the emergency room. The only thing we'll have to send somebody to the emergency room for, they've slipped in the shower and cracked their head open, they have a compound fracture, they have a stroke or heart attack. Should be about the only thing that we have to send them there for. We can bring a doctor in the infirmary and his staff with nurses, with LVNs. We have one RN that oversees the whole staff of LVNs. So I believe we're going to be able to save a substantial amount of money in bringing the care for them, leaving it at the jail rather than going to the doctor or the emergency room. And also, we have a dentist that comes in, and we don't do crowns, we don't even do fillings. If they want their tooth pulled, we'll do extractions and extractions only. So,
Tooth fairy coming?
yeah.
Last question. Is your presentation online?
It's not online yet, but I am going to give it to you. It is online? I guess Bob put it online. But I probably would like to replace that one's online for a kindler and gentler presentation of it. Maybe this one to replace if you already got one online.
No, this one's being broadcast.
Okay, this one is a little bit different. I got about 8 or 10 extra slides on this one that I didn't want to give the commissioners all the fluff. They don't hear that. They know what's going on. They don't hear what we've done for the county. I mean, they do. I'm not trying to make them sound bad. I'm going to talk myself into trouble here. But mine was just the nuts and bolts of what our concerns are, what our issues are, and what I see. Many ideas that some of which they can take. I hope it take more than fewer to move us along where we need to be.
Is that all, sir?
That's it, Ernie.
You don't have any problems.